people come into our workshop and they're like, I can't draw, just so you know, like they're a little bit terrified, and everyone is like, I know everyone is saying I can't draw, but I really can't draw. We usually try to start with simple drawing games. Learning how to draw basic icons is a really good start.
I think it also helps when people see my artistic ability or lack of it, the fact that you don't need to be an artistic genius to be able to use visuals in the workplace. So I think that helps give people a bit of a grounding or an entry point. Something Olina does, which I think is a bit mean in the workshops, is she just goes up to people and says, there's a pen, get drawing. And all of a sudden they're like, and they do.
Yeah, and it's always fascinating to see how quickly that journey goes. I mean, that's the feedback that we get from many people attending our workshops. Like, oh my gosh, I was so scared going into the workshop, and then they're really super excited afterwards.
And I said, well, how do you write a book? And it's like, well, I don't really know, but how we did it was a post at a time. No one learned to write before they could draw, and it is, as you mentioned, your son tapping into that creativity and that sort of natural ability.
Hello everyone, I'm Maria and this is the Agile State of Mind, and this is another episode of Agile Conversations. And today, as you see, I have with me Ben and Olina, the authors of just released Visual Agile Coach Playbook. Hello guys.
Hey, good morning.
Hey.
It's lovely to have you, and I noticed that I actually invite like-minded people to these conversations. So this is how I make friends these days, because we all see each other on LinkedIn, online, but we never talk, and it's a great opportunity also to get to know each other and talk about things that we do and that can help others. Because we want to live a bit of this visualization, I would like to ask you if you can present yourself showing the visuals that I know you have. And this way, we can live what we preach.
Sounds good.
So how we normally do it is introduce each other. So should we do that?
Yes, please. That would be fun. Oh, so Ben starts actually, right?
Right. So I'm up first. Okay. So when we do conference workshops or online, we use these visual manuals of me or manual or introductions. And what we always think is quite fun is if we introduce each other, and then I'll find out if I've got it right or wrong at the end, I'm sure. So hey, this is Olina. As you can see, Olina is from Sweden. You're dialing in from Stockholm today, aren't you?
I sure am.
And you're half Swedish, half Finnish. Two kids. Your background in Agile is as Scrum Master, Agile Coach Experience, and RTE. And when you're not working on Agile, or maybe working on a book with me or other people you're illustrating books for, there's walking in nature. You got forests just near your house, haven't you? Or is that yoga in the forest as well? Is that a thing in Sweden? Maybe not this time of year.
Yeah, sort of. It's meant to be meditation, but
okay.
The same thing.
And then when you're not meditating in the forest, you're at the gym. And there we go. You tell me you can lift more than me. That you're a better dancer, and you're pretty confident that you can hit harder. But I'm not going to call you out on that one. And when it's not all action in the gym, there's your love of books, and your house is scattered with books, and maybe even one of ours is on that book pile. So that's Olina. How did I do? Stick to the script?
That was pretty good. Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So let me introduce Ben. I trust that you can now see a blue page in the background, right? This is the visual presentation for Ben, Mr. Ben Walder, my co-author of the Visual Agile Coach Playbook, is from London. Ben has been spending his last 2 decades within financial services. He's very passionate about learning new ways of working, about investigating future ways of working. And when he's not working in the city, Ben loves to go on a bike ride, preferably in the mountains, as I heard you guys talking about earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Nice.
I'm not surprised. He likes to take his dog for a walk, and he likes to sit in a coffee shop just writing books. So pretty
Okay,
I'm a
that's
simple guy, you know, simple pleasures.
Yeah.
I love this idea of presenting yourself with a visual. That's so much more powerful, and you directly see the connection with yourself, right? Oh, I want to ask you so many questions now.
Mm.
So I use that usually when I go to a new team and we present each other. So I ask everyone to show that. It's great idea for it's kind of a like me instruction how to like read me document, right? And I really like to do that, but I never have an accurate one of me. I think I should use your visual practices to do it. So I would like to ask, um, just for the get-go, before we dive into your story, because how you met is something that I really want to learn about. But before we go there, do you have like a quick toolkit? Like, how do I start? I am everything that Olina you basically mentioned: Agile Coach, Scrum Master, RTE, TPM, whoever you want to mention. I work with teams, and I like using visuals, but I usually use like pictures or I just steal something. How do I start as a person that actually creates their own visuals? Where do I start?
To just get started, I think from the workshops that when we start our workshops, we often try to get over that little threshold that most people have. Like, I think most people come into our workshop and they're like, I can't draw, just so you know, like they're a little bit terrified, and everyone is like, I know everyone is saying I can't draw, but I really can't draw. Like, that's what everyone is saying.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
I see myself in that. Yes.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, many people do. For some weird reason, we have like performance anxiety when it comes to drawing. But we usually try to start with simple drawing games. Learning how to draw basic icons is a really good start.
Mhm.
It seems like you want to fill in there, Ben, something.
Well, I suppose when we do the workshops, we kind of mirror my experiences of not really having that confidence or ability to be honest. So we start with some basic games. There's one called Squiggle Birds that people familiar with, and then we convert circles into things, and a circle's a really easy shape. And those
Mhm.
things become, as Olina says, the icons, and then we build that library. And then we'll perhaps develop it through, once we've got that library, visual library, into constructing processes together. And I think the element that really clicks is when you put a team in, get a team to do it as opposed to just the individual, because everyone starts to lean in and the energy bursts out. I think it also helps when people see my artistic ability or lack of it. So all of a sudden that split in the group between people who will be very good at drawing see mine, and the fact that you don't need to be an artistic genius to be able to use visuals in the workplace. So I think that helps give people a bit of a grounding or an entry point.
Oh, that's great. And then you do this kind of workshops, right? Do you have them like iteratively, like every month, or how does that work? How can we sign up to a workshop from you?
You want to go first?
Okay, so essentially we've been doing these workshops at conferences. So Maria, we met in Vilnius in Agile Latvia. And that was one of the workshops. So we're going to Cork actually for Agile Lean Ireland, and that's when we tend to do the workshops, or online, as you see. So if you get invited or asked to run them, and we kind of develop that initial drawing piece into, for what's quite important for me is the practical usage of visuals, and one that we did in Bolzano in Italy recently. The guys got together and they started to map out the process for making wine. And these guys had never met before, probably never used visuals. And at the end, they had a very comprehensive overview of how to make wine. And you can see how that can then be utilized in the workplace as well for more complex processes.
Cool. And do you do like your own workshops where some people can just sign up online or in
We can
person?
do. We can do. We've done a couple of them. There was one we did with some in Antwerp a year or so ago. So, and in person does work best. So yeah, just give us a call.
Cool. Okay. That's great because yeah, I think when you were explaining that, I thought about like karaoke. We also never know how to sing, and I'm one of those people that sing terribly, but I will go to a karaoke and sing because I also but it also takes a courage, and I think it's important to like start and just do it and see. Like nobody died from me singing, right? Nobody died from looking at my visuals.
So you say.
But that's also great. It's like when I look at my son and the creativity, as you see here, I have all over the place his pictures that they do at school, and sometimes I feel like, my God, he's so much more courageous than I am when it comes to drawing. He would draw more, like he doesn't have all these things like how it should be, right? So he would just draw. And I love when he draws Sagrada Familia. I would just look at it and like make every line perfect, and I'll spend time, and it will be, and he just draws it like from his memory, just the towers, and you can see, and you look at it, it's Sagrada Familia. You would never, and I think this is also the part of unleashing creativity, thanks to the drawing, right?
And that's for me why the visuals is important too. It's another way of unleashing creativity, but it's also another way of getting engagement and interaction between people. So something Olina does, which I think is a bit mean in the workshops, is she just goes up to people and says, "There's a pen, get drawing," and all of a sudden they're like, and they do that, and it kind of crosses that threshold. I like that example of karaoke as well. And then you take them on a more gentle journey to up their visual game, don't you?
Yeah, and it's always fascinating to see how quickly that journey goes. I mean, that's the feedback that we get from many people attending our workshops. Like, oh my gosh, I was so scared going into the workshop, and then really super excited afterwards. And within an hour, I mean, the first 5 to 15 minutes, within that time, we are engaging people in drawing, and they're on their journey, and they have started, and they really get excited. So it's always fantastic to see how quickly you can turn around that like fixed mindset about your own drawing, right?
Oh, that's great.
We quite often, the saying is, no one learned to write before they could draw, and it is, as you mentioned, your son tapping into that creativity and that sort of natural ability, and just giving something a courageousness from drawing before we all got conditioned to write in complicated documents and templates.
Yeah, I agree. And so before we go in further into that, I would like to ask you, because you mentioned that you met on workshop on I actually the moment I got the book and I read, you always like you go through the pages like, oh, this is so cool, I love how it's done, and it has a lot of interesting frameworks, very easily and simplified, like you can do it just like this. But then I came, like when I started from the beginning, I learned about your journey and how you met, and I was like, oh my God, this is the best story ever. Could you explain it a little for us? Because I think it's so inspiring for anyone to just go there, and you'll never know what can happen.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, hopefully that story is as inspiring to others as well. Like, so we met in Malta. We had previously just joined the same startup company. So we met during a PI planning in Malta together with the rest of the company, and quite quickly we discovered that we were on the same wavelength. We had the same thoughts, and we were on the same. Like we had basically had the same ideas when it came to improvements and ideas that we had and so on. I think we started talking about your love for writing, Ben, and my love for drawing and so on. And then that quite quickly led to an idea about starting posting on LinkedIn. That's a bridge over to you.
Ah, okay.
Walder.
So I'm continuing the story here. That's
Yeah.
almost seamless, isn't it? And yeah, I think that recognition that perhaps you're a little bit boxed in yourself in, and we talk about being in the comfort zone actually in some of the models in the book. So I was boxed in my comfort zone, thinking I wanted to write, but not really doing much writing. Alina, I think you were probably the same with the visuals and starting to experiment on putting that on LinkedIn. I was still too scared to put anything on LinkedIn, and I kind of still am to this day, really. But partnering up with someone gave you that shove in the back or that catalyst to and confidence to try something. So we agreed on this kind of, without knowing what or why or how, a project, 52 posts, 1 post a year on LinkedIn. And that gave us the focus to start to put visuals and words together, but you needed to build content.
So
that
you mean one post a week, right?
week,
Not a
yeah.
year. And you posted just the same post or each one posted one, or you were doing them together?
It was the same visual, and then the posts were very similar text, but slightly nuanced for maybe language or background. Olina had more of an agile background to mine, so we nuanced the text, but largely it was the same picture and
Okay.
very similar text, and it was one a week. But you can't just like pull it out of thin air. You need to get the content. So it was a vehicle for us to learn and gain more understanding. So quite often, Alina would set me a project which was go and find out about this agile concept, weighted shortest job first or connecting, etc. So then I have to go and learn about it, craft the text, come back, and Alina would already be waiting there with a nice visual. It probably took her 5 minutes and me 24 hours or something. And then I'd get her back and say, hey, I'm really interested in sport and how that impacts us in business. And here's my article on it. And she'd be like, oh, I hate drawing cyclists, Ben. Can you stop doing sport in work? So we kind of flipped it from who chose the topic. But then
Very
as we went
nice.
on, we started to get into a bit of a groove, which was deeper into the kind of the agile piece. And we started to get feedback that people liked the simplification through my writing and the visualization from Alina. And what it also led me to do was, you might find this hard to believe, but use less words, so that the writing improved and was more punchy for posts or articles, and Alina's pictures started to become more specific on the subject matter that we were talking about. So you were continually evolving as well as you went over that post a week, etc.
That's awesome. So you basically wrote the book in posts.
To a large extent, actually, I would say a third or so was written in posts. And then once we realized that we had something, because we didn't know what we had to start off with, it was just important to get started. There was a body of work that we could then build onwards, but also a process that was working, which made it easy to create the rest of the content. And I was talking to some guys the other evening, and they said, well, how do you write a book? And it's like, well, I don't really know, but how we did it was a post at a time, 1,000 words, 600 words with a structure, and you can quickly build up to your 60,000 word target in that way. So, which is quite an agile way of working, I think, sort of breaking it into smaller chunks. Is that how you remembered it, Alina, or was I on a different plan?
But I think, yeah, we also had we had a lot of work boiling down the book, actually, because when we looked at the material that we have, when we felt like, oh, okay, this is what we want to have in the book, we're like, okay, this is probably 600 pages or so, which was a little bit too much. So we really had to boil down and try to figure out what was essential, what was, most important for people, like what would be most useful. So it was a process of boiling it down as well.
So this is like the prioritization that we talk
Yeah,
about in product management, right? What do you say no to is more important even than what you say yes to.
Exactly.
Out went all the writing inspired by sport. It was just out there. Just get
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben. Yeah, I actually have some things. So yeah, because I that was something I couldn't understand. I'm like, so I know Olina is the one that throws, Ben must be the one that writes, and it also is good that you are a native English speaker. It makes it much like smoother for sure for you to write, right? And I wanted to ask because one of that I when I was reading and looking, there are two things that I think like are the most important as agile coaches, what we do. One is getting to that shared understanding and how you call it, accelerating the clarification, the clarity of the message. And the second one is transformation, change management. How do we help people, which again is getting this shared understanding where we want to be, where we are, why the change needs to happen. So I wanted to ask you from the angle of when you are in a leadership, and sometimes people are like, it has to be serious. And when we go and those leaders share where we want to be, what's the strategy, they show this numbers, a big text, bullet points. This is serious, okay? How do you help those people to switch this? Because then you go and there are those like Spotify, I would say, or even Google, they would be like playful and they show pictures and they can be like doodles, don't have to be perfect. But then there are those companies that usually are smaller, but they want to be perceived as important and serious. How do you do that? It actually could be much better if you just showed some visual what is the goal than just explain it in these many words.
Yeah, I think it's really depending on what type of company that you're working with. But I have been in numerous companies that has been really where I felt like, okay, this is certainly too playful, the stuff that I want to do, like how I would wanted to present stuff. So you have to sort of simplify stuff and really start small to try to build up really get a start point from safe ways of using visuals. I remember at a company that I was with, we had a transformation team with a CEO who did a presentation for all the employees once a week about how transformation went and so on. And it was like that was death by PowerPoint for sure. Like it was 1,000 bullet points at each slide, and every single and he just basically read them. With that team, I tried to encourage them to, just boil down the amount of text, maybe remove the bullet points, try to do something handwritten, like use a slide with just handwritten text, because suddenly changing from typed text to handwritten just make it instantly more interesting. And that's just a tiny little tweak that you can do. And with other companies, I realized, okay, this is I've tried to run PI plannings, for instance, as an RT, wanting to use lots of visuals, but obviously I had to, step down a little bit because it was a little bit too crazy, but, small steps and just making people more comfortable, but maybe baby steps, But I think, Ben, you also have some experience in that.
Well, I was going to say actually at the event in Stockholm last week, a number of people came up to me and talked about you in those large companies. Some were insurance, some are quite traditional, and how you had introduced visuals into the daily work in your local team. how some of them had taken your visuals, whether they've seen it on LinkedIn or however, and were actually using them in their environment. So I think it is quite contagious, and that's starting small and scale. And they were obviously inspired enough because they came along to meet you last week and were talking very highly of the impact that you'd had. I think the other thing that it's good to combine it with, and I think you mentioned it earlier, Maria, is storytelling. So we tell that story of how we met at the start of the book, but there's a whole feature on storytelling as well. And I think as people change their communication style from slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, highly corporate, to try and engage more and capture our attention, it's storytelling which really helps that and can enthuse. And therefore visuals sit alongside that a lot better than Excel spreadsheets or bullet points. I don't think we'll ever erase that because of the way companies work hierarchically or with governance, etc., or formality. But you can start with telling stories, and you can embellish your story with a metaphor and a visual. You can start local and with a team, and it will build from there. But I don't think it's an either or. I don't think you go no more Excel spreadsheets or no more PowerPoint bullet points. You use it for the audience or the environment that you're in, and just test it and tease it and see who picks up and who's inspired.
Yeah, I remember sometimes I remember this one engineering manager who was always adding some GIF, and it always was like very on the point. Sometimes I didn't get the message because I'm not really like good in all the cartoons and Simpsons and everything that people know, and I am like, but it just resonated so well with all the developers when they were watching that. They were like, and then directly you have a different response to the message that you show. And when you were saying that, I think there are those problems that we have in these corporations. And when you mention PI planning, usually it's not a small company, right? Not very small, that you have those templates. And then you have to fill in the template. And the template somehow is created in a way that you just write the words, or maybe use this thing, this one circle, and you can put the number there. That's all you get. And I am now thinking about it because we do this kind of presentations to the C-levels of like business reviews and kind of like that. And I'm thinking, that would be so cool to just, instead of all those numbers and bullet points, start showing pictures, right? And then suddenly, like, start small, maybe just like a picture, not yet a drawing, but already showing this value. And I really now start trying to be more conscious of that. Whenever I have to present something, I try to at least find a GIF or to show that, so that people understand, oh, this is about speed. So visual from the Speed movie, like a GIF, and people get that so much better, and it stays with them, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I
That's
don't think
sorry, I remember you were saying a lot about, like, we are talking about visuals. It seems like, yeah, this is for kids, but no, there is so much research and science that you both share, right? Why this is important and how it can facilitate learning.
I think if you can use any tool, whether it's a hand drawing on a whiteboard or a post-it through to GIFs or memes or videos, etc., what you're doing is trying to engage and catch the eye, because we all have short attention spans these days, and get people to lean in. As long as it's appropriate for the audience, the whole universe of different technology now that allows us to engage and interact with each other visually, but we're still very stuck on that Excel spreadsheet or that PowerPoint. So I'll just say, give it a go. There's a chapter at the end called Visualizing Matrix, and from bar charts made of cinnamon buns to using creating dashboards and roadmaps, etc., and interplaying with GIFs and memes. It's all there to give it a go. You don't even have to pick up a pen and paper for that. Just a snip and a copying and pasting, a linking.
Yeah, that's great. And I also like that, I think this is because I do some facilitation, And since I haven't ever tried to draw myself, I at least try to find a good metaphor. Like I was doing, for example, the facilitation master chef, and I saw the Swedish chef, by the way, from the Muppets. It was just so funny. I was putting it on all the slides. Like, okay, I will tell you the story, but here you have the chef, so you can like visually become a chef and be playful and use facilitation. How, like as if you do a recipe and you try to make it yours. Not, you don't have to always do it as per the recipe, right? So those things really help. And could you share a little bit about that? Because we call it visual thinking, visual communication, visual practice, visual learning. You call it visual practice to use that word for all the things. Could you a bit explain that? Because I think people are also like, oh, I don't know what's the difference between this and that, and why is it called in this many ways. And sometimes we get caught on these small things instead of just like, no, it's just about giving the message.
Do you want to take that, Ben?
Okay,
Because I remember we were talking about this is the reason. It's funny that you're saying this, because to me it was so obvious. So I didn't understand why we needed to talk about it, but this was something that you, Ben, raised, and you were like, I feel like it's very important that we have this, blah blah. You'll explain why, but to me it was so obvious. So I didn't understand why we needed to clarify this, but that's why it's kind of funny that you're saying it. So Ben, please.
Yeah, I knew this would come back to haunt me at some stage. So, when you look into visuals, there's, as you say, Maria, visual communication, and that can be from the scribble on the whiteboard to the kind of the highly visual PowerPoint. Then there's visual thinking, where your brain is thinking in visuals as opposed to pure words, and then visual learning, in that you learn better from the visuals as opposed to text, etc. There's a lot of science there, and there's a lot of people who don't like the science, and there's a lot of people who dispute it or argue about it or can't come at it from different angles. Quite frankly, I was confused. So when we were talking about visual communication, were we talking about visual learning and visual thinking as well? And when we talk about visual thinking, were we talking about visual communication and visual learning as well? I was like, I don't know. But for me, you could define communication, learning, and thinking, but put it under an umbrella term of visual practices to try and avoid my confusion and hopefully other people's confusion. But ultimately, that said, whether there's science, it's right or wrong, or what terminology you're using, it didn't really matter to me, because I just felt visuals were a way of getting a reaction. They were a way of communicating, of being a catalyst for a conversation, an interaction, creativity. And that was the important thing about them. So if you widen it up to kind of future of work conversations or progressive working practices, using visuals, visual practices, or however you want them, to engage with people, to communicate with them better, to give you a better chance of getting your message across or getting some feedback. That's where the visuals sort of excited me. And then we just gave it a simple label as well, so that we didn't get too caught in terminology.
Yeah, makes sense. And that also shows how you guys really click and fill in for each other, right? Because I recently spoke with Michael Lloyd from Dysfunctional Mapping.
Yeah.
And we also had this conversation, and he was also saying that, like, I did something I thought everybody does. Because when you start being in a new company or in a new team, you usually need to find the problems, the issues, the challenges they have, and you try to help them correct and find the way. And he was like, I didn't know this might be something that I need to explain. I thought it will be maybe only for like junior Scrum Masters. And no, we all can use that, because it's also something we all do, and we lack this kind of a frame. Oh, now I know this is really good to do it in a way. upstream, like the other way around, but still using your kind of like a frame. It really helps. And sometimes you would think for yourself that, oh, there's nothing to explain. And I think that so many times, like when I have my channel and I talk about stuff that I think it's very basic, but it's basic for me because I learned, right? And there are other people. And I think it's not even, I can say that it's basic. It's what you just said, that sometimes you give yourself a task to work on, let's work on, I don't know, one of the frameworks like Kinefin. We know it, but then we always learn something new when we start researching and preparing how we would put it into our words, right? And how we can convey the message. So it's sometimes this way of stating the obvious, but every time we state it in a way that we can learn something and others as well, right?
So Olina always says to me, and then at our workshops, etc., that whether it's visual practices or just purely drawing is a very active process. You can't be passive as an individual. Whereas if you've got a group and she's handing out pens to absolutely everyone, and then we put a bit of paper in front of them and we say, can you solve this problem for us? All of a sudden there's engagement, creativity, interaction, conversations. We really notice when we give people an exercise like this, the noise levels go up and there's laughter, and then you see an end product. And it's not that dissimilar from mapping a process in something like Visio, an end-to-end process, target operating model. It's not that much different from kind of using Miro, etc. You don't have to have the pen and paper. Miro is a fantastic whiteboard with loads of features that you can draw people in and put the GIFs or the memes or the videos or the icons to get that creativity remotely as well. And people have got to be active. They can't sit there and not get involved. And I think that's the real power of visuals in this context, especially with metaphors, or especially with gamification as well. And the book has got tools and templates in there which are designed to get people to engage, with an element of gamification in there as well. So i.e. fun, to kind of get a good result or outcome.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think that was very powerful for me, because on one hand, the book you simplify the very complex things that we need to learn, the frameworks, different concepts that might sound like difficult at the beginning, but you simplify them and show them in a way that they are very easily absorbed. But then on the other hand, you also share many of those, like a lot of things that you can use as an agile coach in your daily work, and you already have a picture that you can just draw, right? You can copy and use. So I think it's really powerful. And also not, and again, it's like you might think, oh, well, it's for a junior Scrum Master who starts. But no, I think even for myself, I find stuff that, oh, I knew about it. Maybe I used it like a long time ago, but I already forgot. And here it's like a good refresher to remember why it's useful and important, and where can I apply it.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. And I think that's what we tried to do when we created like the chapters, which is consist of the role profile. So for every every part of your agile coach role, there should be something in there that could inspire you, give you ideas, templates, and reminders, work like a Wikipedia almost, for every certain part of your role.
Yeah, I actually took the book into my daughter's school and presented it at their careers forum to say, do you know what, your career's coming up over the horizon, you may be starting to think about it. If you actually look to the role profile, forget the word visual, forget the word agile or even the word coach, but look at those 9 roles and responsibilities, and if you worked your way around them or dipped into them, etc., teamwork or leadership, and you explored some of the concepts within there, the thought leadership, you would end up with quite a well-rounded skill set and a good toolkit to take you forward into your career, and to get you started on. So it's funny how, yeah, we started off with the Agile Coach role profile, but actually I think leaders, seniors could look at that and go, am I ticking those boxes?
Yeah.
Is my team ticking those boxes? And actually, I'm interested in leadership. Well, let's dive a little bit deeper. And as you say, Maria, we've simplified things. I'm a kind of simple guy, so you only get like the top, kind of hopefully the key messages, but hopefully inspires people to pick up the thought leadership and go and get the real book that sits behind it, or research the research papers that backing up the content there to explore a little bit deeper.
Oh yeah, and you know, simplifying things is not an easy task. So don't sell yourself so low, because it's I think I try to do that too, and I really get like messages and comments that I put it in a simple language, and sometimes it's all people need, you know, because why we have to always have this jargon and that important, like making it such a threshold to enter, because I need to know all the jargon to understand what you're saying. And my take from, I was in the Agile 2024 in Dallas this year, and I learned, oh my God, like people really need this simple message. And there are so many people still struggling with those problems that we think, oh, we solved them already, you know, in my company, oh, we solved for them. But you go to another one and people struggle again. And that's also how, when I was talking to Michael, and he said, you know, the dysfunctions, there are like 3, they always happen. And we have those misunderstanding of concepts because we always, like, there is this tendency to use very complex words and then like jargon and making it also, oh, I know and you don't.
Yeah.
So just helping people understand and making it very accessible is a big deal and a really important job, I think.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
and maybe that's why it's so appealing to people when they pick up the book and like, oh my gosh, this is really easy to absorb. Yeah.
I know that your poster on Agile Manifesto is kind of, people love that because it boils it down. So it's not even the words, that's the power of visuals there. Or I was talking to someone at the Stockholm last week around your lean coffee poster, and they use that over and over again as the template and blueprint for their meetings to explain the concept, because it's made it easy and accessible. I think some of the other visuals that are incorporated
I'll
in there.
show a few of them.
There we
So
go.
this is the Agile
Yeah.
Manifesto, yes.
And there's
Yeah,
other.
it was great. And when I saw that, and I'm like, how great that you actually did this. You know, people would say like, oh, who doesn't know Agile Manifesto? Well, if we need to reread it over and over, otherwise we forget, right? It's not like, oh, I start my Agile journey, so I will read the Agile Manifesto once when I start and then never again. Because we forget what's there, right? And it's really great. You can see here. Yeah, I will show some visuals for that. It's really cool.
And I
Yeah,
think some of the other models that I hadn't probably been aware of, or in the back of my mind, when you see them presented in visual form and in an interesting visual form, I think there's the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Alina's got a zombie throwing himself off that model. It catches your eye, it draws you in, and then all of a sudden you're discovering and reading and learning and increasing your knowledge and your personal development when you might not have before, if you'd seen that wall of text, or you'd heard someone talking with complex jargon. So
Yeah.
I hope there's
I
enough
even
of
see
that in
here
there.
Alina skiing, so there is some sport
Oh, yeah.
reference.
I think I got
And
away with a couple of mountains and one sport reference, and
oh,
it's skiing.
Oh, yeah.
That was my allowance.
okay. Oh yeah, the skis again. Yay!
Yeah.
And I love it because when I met Alina for the first time, it was in Vilnius
Oh,
2023,
yeah.
and you were in that orange jacket,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I was in a red one, you know, and I'm like,
Oh, yes.
this is my girl. Like, yeah. And you can see Alina is visual. Even in life, you will never miss her if you are on a conference. She will wear clothes that are drawing attention, that are visual, that you can't miss.
Yeah, you need to pick up that as well, Ben. We
I'm
need to
not
give
sure
you
I
a purple
Exactly.
flag if it
quite
sounded,
do
yeah.
orange, so I'll leave the orange to you.
That's great. I think we are coming to an end. I always wanted to be quick, but it's impossible to talk and be quick and cover all the topics that are interesting for me, and I hope for the audience as well. Thank you so much. Do you have anything you would like to share where the viewers can find you so that they can sign up to those workshops?
Yeah, so we have a web page called the visualagilecoach.com. There you will find, we'll put all the trainings that we have, the upcoming workshops and so on, link to the stuff that we have, like the book and posters and so on. So I think that is the go-to place.
LinkedIn. You on LinkedIn, Olina?
Oh, I might have a profile there, yeah.
Yeah. So just
Oh
go
yeah, that's
go
our
on
second
link,
home, right?
It is, yes.
yeah, LinkedIn, or there's the Visual Agile Coach LinkedIn pages as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Yeah. So great. Thank you so much for taking the time, and congrats really on the book. It's great, and I hope it will become an agile bestseller.
fingers crossed. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Maria, thanks for inviting us. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Cheers, guys.